I'm the founder of Cultural Action Party, and we are a political organization that focuses mainly on immigration and multiculturalism, and we question a lot of the policies that are in place now, and are asking Canadians to take a closer look at what's going on in the world of Canadian immigration and multiculturalism. You know, Canada's multiculturalism is almost unique in the world. The only other country in the world that has official multiculturalism, and by that we mean whereby the policy is entrenched in the Constitution of the country. So Canada and Australia have constitutional multiculturalism. This really distinguishes us from all other nations on earth, because while many countries, obviously the USA and European countries and so on and so forth, they maintain diversity within their nations, they don't actually have constitutional multiculturalism. So what is the difference here? Why is this important or significant? It is significant because under that policy, it is mandated that funds, money, and this would be taxpayer money from Canadian workers, Canadian taxpayers, go toward multiculturalism by way of funding certain organizations. So multicultural organizations throughout the country. Some are national, some are provincial, some do work on a municipal basis as well. And so what is mandated is that these taxpayer dollars should go to these groups to promote their culture and ethnicity. And this is the way it was and has been since the inception of multicultural policy. Now that was in the year 1988. Multiculturalism as an ideology began in 1971 when Pierre Elliott Trudeau introduced it to our country. And by the way, it was interesting timing that just the previous year, he was the first Western leader to meet with Mao Zedong, the chairman of the People's Republic of China. Maybe 2 years later, President Nixon visited, but Trudeau actually was the first Western leader. And the following year, multicultural ideology was introduced to Canada. 17 years later, it was established within the Constitution of Canada and became a government policy, and the funds began flowing from taxpayers to these organizations. Okay? Now, there's a large component of this picture that the general public is largely unaware of, and through no fault of their own. I mean, because our government basically has positioned multiculturalism in a certain method or way of promoting it throughout our society, and they had positioned it as a benefit and something that was equitable and fair to all, and was had a positive impact on society or the economy, even, you know.
How do you think most people understand the word multiculturalism? What do you think they think when they use the word?
I think they naturally think multi, which is what the policy would suggest. Multi meaning various, a variety of ethnicities. And indeed, that was the original plan. It was the original intention. But it has taken a very different course. And what really has transpired in the 25 to 30 years since the policy was established, I think that's 26 years, is that it has gone from a plan to fund various ethnic communities to more of a tool, or even some would argue a weapon, you know, to promote a certain agenda to Canadian society and to the Canadian people. It is that agenda that I believe that people are simply unaware of. Again, not their fault, but it's through a combination of elements: government messaging, media positioning, Canada having as a mainstream media a tendency toward the liberal, you know, and the Liberal Party as well, because, for example, the Globe and Mail was developed out of the Liberal Party in its origin, and when it began, I'm guessing 70, 80 years ago, maybe.
So what's the agenda, you know, that most people don't know about multiculturalism?
Multiculturalism, the agenda is basically to take the money and use it to impact Canadian culture and society and religion as well, even. It's multifaceted, right? So
you're talking about mainstream Canadian society.
yes, absolutely. I mean,
in what way? Like,
well, I mean, it's developed into something which, you know, I refer to as Multicult Canada. It's a movement. It's a political movement that promotes basically the demise of traditional Canadian society. So when I say traditional, I'm talking about English and French Canadian heritage, English and French as Canada's official languages, Christianity as a religion to some degree as well, and is really trying to elevate this a globalist international agenda, you know, upon Canadian society to the detriment of generational Canadians, we could call them, which means second and third generation and beyond, Canadian-born citizens, Canadian students, Canadian workers, Canadians of European origin, Christian Canadians. You know, this is a much more insidious situation than the general public understands, and there are very definite reasons why they do not understand it.
So, Brad, just maybe starting at the end of the things that you were saying were being impacted by multiculturalism. For example, take religion, Christianity. What is multiculturalism doing that's going to maybe lead to Christianity's demise?
Well, I mean, you can look at it a few different ways. You can look at it in terms of what's actually happened on a concrete basis, which is the banning, for example, the banning of the Lord's Prayer in the public school system. Now, this was done originally to maintain a non-denominational public school system within Canada. It wasn't done in any kind of punitive manner. The problem is that other religions, one other religion in particular, is thriving within that school system and within our education system in general, while the Christian religion, which is the religion of the forefathers of the founders of Canadians, the majority of Canadians today, this is the roots and heritage of our country. Sir John A. Macdonald, Sir Wilfrid Laurier, Mackenzie King, John Diefenbaker. I mean, these people all came from a Christian tradition. Some were Catholic and French Canadian, and others were Protestant. So to have a situation whereby whereby law or legislation is passed that hinders an element of Christianity or a Christian prayer, and I believe, or not believe, this is very short prayer, and you know, I'm not advocating it should be said in public school. What I am saying is that there should not exist this double standard. It should not exist, right? So if you have prayers on Friday afternoon in public school, Islamic prayers, and you're holding those in the cafeteria or in the gymnasium at a public school, and yet you ban the Lord's Prayer, it's hypocritical. It's damaging, right? Because and it's rooted in multiculturalism, and the fact that, and it's an example of multiculturalism leading to the rise, okay, of a religion that just was no part of Canadian history, has no part of the development of Canadian institutions or anything of that nature. And you're legitimizing that and saying, okay, you know, like, this is good and this is righteous to have this Muslim prayer. And in the meantime, we have other examples, like in Quebec, where a government, they banned the Lord's Prayer. Maybe it was the Lord's Prayer in government. That's right. It was, I believe it was a Christian prayer. It was also, I think it was the Lord's Prayer. So there you have examples within government, and you have examples within our education system of the negation of the traditional religion of Canada.